Hello and welcome back to An Old Man Watches, where today I'm going to be talking about the 2004 version of Flight of the Phoenix. And in the film, Captain Frank Towns and his co pilot AJ are transporting a group of oil workers over the Gobi Desert when a major dust storm engulfs the plane. One of the engines gets taken offline, and Towns has no option but to make a crash landing in the middle of an uncharted region. Three passengers are killed in the crash, and the rest of them are now stranded some several hundred miles of course. The conversation naturally turns to their options for survival. Some of them want to try hiking out, but it's the height of summer in the desert, and Towns is adamant that they won't make it. He's even less interested in the radical scheme offered by a hitchhiking passenger named Elliot. This man is an aeronautical engineer and says that by using some parts of their cargo, he could rebuild the wreckage of their plane into a functional aircraft. Absolutely not, says Towns. This plane never fly again. Best plan is to stay by the plane, wait for rescue. There's enough water will last them for a month if they're careful. Surely someone will find them by then. Unfortunately, it soon becomes apparent that the people most likely to find them first are a group of smugglers who maintain a base in this region. And as you might imagine, the smugglers aren't keen to have anyone getting back to civilization to report on their activities, and they're willing to take whatever steps are necessary to protect their secret. And so that far fetched plan to create a new aircraft from the wrecked plane, a phoenix rising from the ashes, goes into effect. They'll have to do it with makeshift tools while being hammered with intermittent sandstorms. So here's hoping that Elliot's every bit the aeronautics genius he purports to be. Now, depending on your perspective, this is a remake of the 1965 film of the same name, or it's the second adaptation of the novel on which that earlier movie was based. And like the earlier film, it follows the basic outline of the plot in the book pretty closely. Also, like the early film, it was a box office disappointment. And I have to say, I had mixed feelings when I first learned that they were filming this movie. On the one hand, the new cast looked good, and I felt there was room to improve on the 1965 film, which I found to be solid but not exceptional. On the other hand, the addition of a single female role felt strongly like tokenism, and well, it's a remake. I've seen Gus Van Sant's version of Psycho, so I know how wrong that can go. Overall, though, I was curious enough that when the film became cheaply available on DVD, I was willing to give it a try. So, how do I feel about it now that I've watched it? Well, I still have mixed feelings. Let's talk about why. So, in addition to more or less following the same plot as the earlier film, this version has kept many of the same character arcs. This is one area in which I wish they'd made more changes. Both cinematic versions of The Flight of the Phoenix lack a strong sympathetic character for much of their length. It might be formulaic to juxtapose the abrasive but indispensable aeronautical genius with a warmer and more sympathetic, less elitist character with whom the audience can identify, but it's a formula because it works. By instead juxtaposing Elliot's arrogant self confidence with a dour and defeatist character like Frank Towns in this movie, the film leaves you with no one to really like. And if you don't like these fictional people, how much can you care about their survival? Now, Captain Towns does admittedly slowly overcome his own shortcomings, but the emphasis here very much has to be on slowly. We are well into the film's 2 hour runtime before he really becomes the kind of person that I wanted to root for. I will, however, give this version points making a larger proportion of the subsidiary characters more likable than the original, though. I especially like the subversion of the usual pompous jerk paradigm with Hugh Laurie's character. The film neatly sidesteps the standard trope of having him being a pain in the butt for the whole movie and then ultimately getting killed off or learning an important lesson about humility and cooperation. This is one place where the film deliberately goes against the standard formula and it makes it work, so well done on that front. Unfortunately, I can't offer the same praise for the film's handling of its one female character. As I said, I was worried before watching the film that she'd basically just be a token nod to diversity, and to me, it feels like this fear was borne out. Now, that has nothing to do with the performance of Miranda Otto, I should note. She does solid work as usual, but she's asked to do very little work by the script, which is a shame because she's a fine actor, and I think there was a real opportunity to have her character, who is the supervisor of the oil rig team, act as a foil for Hugh Laurie's pompous jerk executive. Alas, that chance goes begging. Now, one major change between this version of the movie and the earlier one is the decision to add more action scenes. The 1965 version eschewed such things in order to focus on the struggle for survival and the fracturing relationships between the men as their situation grew ever more desperate. While two of the men do die of violence from outsiders in that version of the film, that happens off screen, and the outsiders show little interest in following up to see if there's anyone else around. The smugglers here are much more active and motivated, and the struggle to finally launch the makeshift aircraft happens under the imminent threat of a smuggler attack, which in theory should make for a more exciting climax. There's a real and imminent threat there, in theory. In practice, unfortunately, I didn't feel that the two major action sequences in the movie were well connected to the rest of the script. And I don't seem alone in that either. Several critics have called out the movie for its generic action. Ultimately, not even the fine cast can make this film soar very high. It's a harmless enough diversion, I guess, but there's not something with much to remember it by here. Next time, a movie that is credited with influencing both David Lynch and George A. Romero, the 1962 psychological horror movie Carnival of Souls. But that is for next time. Until then, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you've seen either version of Flight of the Phoenix, let me know what you thought of them.